Hi, I'm Russ from Florida Tube Amp. On the bench today we have a Fender Blues Jr. I'm sure several people have seen that there's modifications for this you can do, Billm and Fromal mods. I've done them all to several different Blues Juniors, and I've kind of came up with this, which is mostly the Billm but with some twist. So I'm going to mod this amp up and show you, and then I'm going to sell this amp because I've already got two others that are modded and I don't need a third one. Alright, here's the back side of the amp. We can see this is one of the ones that was made in Mexico, and it is missing one screw, but I have those screws, so I will replace that, and I will clean it up a little bit, and let's pull the back off. Alright, here's the inside of the amp. We can see that we've got these IC chips, and we're going to change these out. Now, in the Billm mod, he only changes this one out to twice the value to maybe give it better low end and not fart out quite as easy. But as long as we're having to pull the circuit board, I'm not a big fan of these IC chips. I've seen them go bad at a very young age, so I'm going to change all of these out, and I'm going to replace them with F&Ts. Additionally, I'm going to replace some of the tone caps, which are a little hard to see here. See if I can lower this down so you can see it better. Up in here, we're going to change out these tone caps, and we're also going to change out some resistors in here and over here to different values to give the preamp a little bit more gain, and that seems to actually make the biggest difference of anything. And we're also going to put a bias pot on it right here. Now, in the Billm mods, he actually has you drill a hole, but I've found a way to do that without drilling a hole, and I prefer that an amp always be able to be taken back to stock if somebody ever wants that. In addition, we're going to change out this input to a metal input, which is going to make that a lot more stable and a lot less likely to break. I can kind of show you that on another board here. If we take a look, you can see this is a board I've done some work on, where I replaced this cap here, these three here. Here is the bias pot that I'm going to put on it. And you can see where I've changed out some caps here and here. So that is what we're going to do this one. What you can't see here is that I have to pull this board and twist and pull the wires from the transformer going to the board. I'm going to twist these up for perhaps a little less noise. Alright, before I go any farther, I want to talk about safety for a minute. These amps or any tube amp, and even a lot of solid state stuff, can have high voltages that can be very painful or lethal even after the amp has been unplugged for a while. These caps right here are rated at 450 volts, and 450 volts will hurt you pretty bad if they're still charged. So we're going to, before I move any farther and start pulling stuff apart, I'm going to make sure that they're not charged. Now, with a Blues Jr., you can actually, if the tubes are in it, you can plug it in, let it warm up to where it'll actually play sound, and then shut it off, and it will discharge the tubes for you. But you never want to depend on that, because if it doesn't, or something else happens that's not working, and you have voltage and don't know it, you could get hurt. So I'm using a big resistor here to discharge these. They're probably just fine, but I'm not taking a chance because life's short. And I'm going to take a meter, which I have right here, and I'm going to ensure that they are discharged. Here, I will show you on the big cap here that it is way down. So I'm checking the other caps too, and they're the same. So this amp is currently safe to work on. If you don't know what I just did and you're not comfortable with that, then you probably should not be getting anywhere near the inside of an amplifier, because they can be dangerous. Alright, I've loosened everything up and pulled all the wires off. You also have to pull this panel, which is down here, and the inputs, and you've got to pull all the cables, and then you have to very carefully, don't push on these, you have to reach up top here and push down, and you can get this thing to come out like this. Alright, you can see I've got the 3 caps out. One thing I want to point out is that it's really easy to mess up the traces on the back of the circuit board. You really want to cut these and then carefully. You don't want to just unsolder them and try to pull them out. You're going to want to cut the leads and then maybe push them out backwards, because it's really easy to mess up the traces on these. But while I have these caps out, I'm going to replace these, which is R48 and 49, with 2.2K resistors, which ups the voltage. It seems to give the amp more headroom. Actually, it makes a big difference. This kind of allows you to, if you like to play with your volume control and roll the amp off for clean and pull it up for dirty, it just gives you a lot more range and headroom for some reason. It works well. Okay, you can see that I have replaced these 2 resistors right here. And you can see that I did use the standoffs to keep the one off the board. It's not really necessary, but again, it's my feeling that someday, 20 years from now, 10 years from now, there may be a reason to return this amp back to stock. I doubt it, but you know, you just never know. So rather than, you know, leave this part out, I have put them in, and that way sometimes somebody in the future, if they want to put the original resistors back in and use a standoff, they can. Alright, I wanted to show you really quickly that I had done the solder joints, and I also wanted to show you this right here, which, so sorry about that, which is not clipped off yet, but I am going to be jumping 2 of the connections on the mid-range pot, which will allow you to take all of the mid-range out. You can't really do that stock, so it's a nice little mod to do to these things. And alright, you can see the orange caps are now installed for the tone, and we're going to move on to the next section. Alright, I replaced R3 and R8 with some 82K resistors. Sure, I used way too big of ones, but I happen to like to do that. That works well. Alright, this is the 50K pot that I'm going to use to modify to put a bias control on this amplifier without drilling a hole in it. Okay, let's have a close-up of the pot there. You can see I've installed it. I added a little bit of wire on the bottom, and I was able to install that without drilling any holes. Okay, the next step is to replace the input jack with a nicer metal input jack, so that if you bump it, you don't break the plastic one that's in it now. I take these and make these up with very nice shielded wire, and I make them where they ground out when they're not plugged in, so it doesn't make any noise. Okay, let's review. We've changed this cap out here to one twice the size. We've also went ahead and replaced these caps. These are all F&Ts, very nice caps, and will probably last well over a decade without any problems. Here we have the 2 tone caps that have been replaced with nice orange drops. We have the 50K bias pod that has been added. Up the preamp voltage with a couple of resistors here and a couple down here. Put some coupling caps in. We have replaced the jack with a much nicer metal jack. And the next step I will do is review the soldering, review the back of the board. And I'm going to take a very close look at this back here and make sure that there are no bad solder joints anywhere. I'm going to check my own work. My soldering is very good, but I'm human. I make mistakes, so I want to double check everything. Plus, my experience has been that it's not uncommon for these things to have not the best solder joints in some places, so it's just a really good idea to review them. Okay, I have it all wired up and back together, short of the back panel. You can see that I have twisted up several of the wires coming up from the transformer. These things are not horribly noisy in the first place, but twisting up the wires can help, so I've done that. And the next step is to plug it into the variac and make sure everything is working okay. Okay, I have it plugged up and running. I have hooked into my trusty variac over there that you can see that I've got at about 68 volts. I've got it about half power, and I've got a way up top there. You can see my signal generator. I've got 1K going into it, and you can obviously hear that. And I'm not going to listen to it, but I'm going to go ahead and let it run for a little while and let those caps break in and go get a cup of coffee. Okay, I let it run at 60 volts for a while, and then I cranked it up to 120, and I checked everything, and it's all working good. I went ahead and adjusted the bias. You can see that I've done a jumper across these two, the red and the brown here, which I believe I got from Billm, and he says to set it between 2.4 and 2.7 volts. I found that I like about 2.6 volts. The nice thing about having a bias control is that if you want, you can use cheap tubes, and you can pump it up. You can even pump it up to 2.9 or 3, and you'll burn up tubes a lot faster. But there's a different sound with that, and you might like that. If you want to run expensive tubes, you can make sure that it's biased properly and maybe even a little cooler than this, and you can get a lot longer tube life. It just depends on what you're doing and what you want to do. You have some choices. Out of the factory, it comes pretty hot, so it tends to cook tubes. And I think this is much better. Okay. One more close look at everything here. Now, one thing I might have to do is that if I do have some noise, sometimes adjusting the way these are will help with the noise. Also, these things break really easy and come loose really easy. I've already checked these, and they all seem to be fine and tight. But you want to be careful with these, and make sure that you check the solder joints when you have the board down, because it's really easy to break those loose. So the next step is to put this thing back together and play it.